Hey everyone, welcome back to the Be Fit podcast. I'm your host, Connor Murphy, joined here with the executive director and co-founder of Mass Fallen Heroes, a veteran himself, Dan Magoon.
Thanks, Connor. Honored to be here, pal.
Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Excited.
Dan and I met a few years ago now. What was our initial meeting?
Actually, I think it was through Molly. We met. You had the intent of doing an event at the memorial and tying in some CrossFit, right?
That's right.
And honoring the fallen. And I think you were actually working to help get me in shape too. So we had a little session on our own where we did a burn down the seaport.
That's right, which in that workout continued to be a part of your regimen.
Yeah, still doing it.
And then helped connect with, what's the company? Sorinex?
Yeah, we got Sorinex. Built our gym.
Built out
the home office. And
beautiful gym.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And so again, fitness started to bring us together. And then I started learning a lot more about what Mass Fallen Heroes does and all the unique things that they're doing for veterans in this community. And it's more than just Mass Fallen Heroes, right? It's Innovets, and it's something that we want to spread throughout, not just Massachusetts, but you're doing an incredible job in Massachusetts. But for our listeners, I mean, from like a ground level, as if someone knows nothing about it, what does Mass Fallen Heroes do?
Yeah, so we go back to 2010, and I think it's important to look at our founding and where we came from as veterans who made it home. Obviously, we want to honor the fallen. We've lost friends. We've all had, connections to, obviously, combat service and what happens there. And at the time, there was a need. And, we as veterans were coming together to build a community to support one another. And we saw that, obviously, there was a missing link in honoring the fallen, but more importantly, the families that were left behind. So the mission evolved from 2010, really off the back of a napkin. That's the joke. We're in the back of Florian Hall, a bunch of firefighters, a bunch of cops, people who made it back. And we had this dream of building a memorial. And, there was an amazing team effort that helped elevate that idea into reality. I mean, it took a little time. Obviously, we're building a nonprofit. We needed to site and fund a memorial to properly honor the fallen. We did that. We broke ground on the seaport. We made a deal with John Hines. BGI brought us in, and we dedicated that memorial in 2016. In that time, we got more involved in programs and services around veterans and Gold Star families, and we've continued to grow and evolve with those programs with families and veterans, and it brought us to where we are today. And obviously, we continue to grow and continue to build so that we're providing more for veterans and Gold Star families.
And when Dan mentions a Gold Star family, that is someone who lost a direct family member to military services. I mean, Gold Star still would be similar with firefighter and police, or is it just military?
Just military. So any service member who died while in service, both combat related and non-combat training, or just in uniform.
And as you can imagine, I mean, like Dan said, we all have friends. Not all of us have family members that were directly impacted by this, but if you can imagine, you think about like a husband or wife or a mom or dad, son or daughter that, made the ultimate sacrifice for the country, and to have a dedicated memorial one, but then also a nonprofit to continue to honor those heroes. And something I've always said, and something that resonated for me, again, I always said it because someone much smarter than me said it, but there's really two times when a hero dies, and one is their time that they leave this earth, and the second time is when people stop saying their names. And when we talked about what we did at the memorial was the memorial workout Murph after Lieutenant Michael Murphy, and each time you do that, it's not that what you're doing in a workout is sharing a suffering that they suffered during their time. It's not it at all. But what you're doing is you're saying their name, and what that means to family members and Gold Star family members is everything. To know that their legacy and what they died for was not in vain, and that what they died for was for a greater purpose, and that they are remembered, especially on days like Memorial Day. But what you've done with Mass Fallen Heroes just kind of created not just Memorial Day, but having that and having them honored each day.
Yeah, it's important, and you see that in the community, obviously, particularly with veterans and first responders. A lot of it does come from those workouts, but the impact that has in remembering is important. But it's also cathartic and almost therapeutic in a sense to the person who served, right? Because they're continuing to carry that, and saying their names is one of the most important things. I mean, we put names on a glass, but there's so much more that could be done because there's so much more to that name. and trying to carry the legacy of their service, but also, what it means to the families and how important it is that they not just visibly see it and feel it when they're on site, but how do you wrap more around that throughout the year? So you're not just there. It's way more to the mission where we continue to build that community and bring those families together because they can be with one another and heal almost, because they're with someone who's been in their shoes, as opposed to just kind of being isolated and on their own island. And one of the things that stuck with me since I got out was I had friends that I lost and their families didn't really have anything. And still to this day, just because they're in a different state or in a different location throughout the country, they don't have the networks or the community that we have here, not only in Massachusetts, but, every state's different, right? So it's important that we continue to do these things because it means a lot to those families. It's unbelievably important for the ones who gave that sacrifice, but then more importantly, it's good for us too, because we're carrying on that legacy for them.
In your experience, we don't have to go too deep down the rabbit hole, but I'm sure there's been times where you've seen some dark stuff and you've been in some dark places. What are some of the ways for you? This will go out. This is kind of like a question for you, but it can help fellow veterans and then people who don't know what it's like. What are some of the things that have created and brought purpose to your life to help you kind of in those situations or to avoid getting in those situations and those bad thought processes?
I mean, speaking from a personal level, just me as Dan Magoon, I learn from them, right, and try to do better. And I've made mistakes. I've had personal mistakes and things that I did in my life that, I didn't feel good about, right? And I wanted to make sure that I lived my life better for them, and I've learned through my personal journey that there's only certain people that can do it. It's not me. This is a team effort. This is obviously an organizational effort, but if there's a veteran who stumbles or falls into something that has negative consequences, you obviously learn from it. It doesn't mean it's the end of the road. It doesn't mean, you don't matter. But we have a tendency of falling through the cracks, and I can speak from my personal experience where I've almost been there. But I've been able to reflect on the ones who didn't have that opportunity to make those mistakes. So I try to live better for them. And that struck with me with one particular family from Massachusetts. And, this was a service member who went down in a Chinook. And one of the things that he said before he died, before he deployed was, can you do more? And can you make a difference? And that was something that when I took some of the things that I had in my life that didn't go right, and that stuck with me because it's like, I need to do more to be better, but I need to do it for them because they didn't get the chance. So, we get stuck in the negatives sometimes, but we can turn them into positives. And that was the one good thing that we were able to do. I got a little emotional thinking about it, but when veterans come together for a common purpose, good things happen. And that's what we got to continue to do in whatever mission it is or whatever we're doing, whether it's working out or whether it's continuing to drive, food to vets that need it. It doesn't matter. You're doing something greater and better than yourself.
That reminds me of a quote that came from William Blake Marston. And it was a New Hampshire native. And at the end of kind of how he lived his life was that he had said, a very wise man once told me, you get what you give, so go and give well. And I've found myself in similar situations where if I'm not involved and I'm not doing something for a greater purpose, I could be doing a lot of things, but if I'm not doing something for a greater purpose and honoring, the people that came before me and the people that served with me and after me, I find myself maybe without as much purpose in my life. And that's where, I've found myself in those dark areas. And, Sebastian Younger said this really well in a book called Tribe. It's one of my favorite books. I always talk about it. But, I don't think a lot of the issues with veterans really comes from, it's not quite the same as, people who served in like in the Korean War and some of that stuff that they come back with these war stories that they can't live with themselves. It's that everyone in the service has a purpose. They have a job. And it doesn't matter if your job is filling a water tank, if it is doing paperwork, or if it is on the front lines in combat. People rely on you to do your job. And if you come back here and you start to lose your purpose, you no longer have that group of people that rely on you, no matter what it is. It's really hard. Even if you're financially successful and you're doing things, if you don't have that purpose, man, it gets into a dark area. So you providing these opportunities for veterans, whether it is getting together for a workout, coming down to a memorial to even just reflect on the fact that they're still there and to live a life that's worth living because of those people, I think is really, really incredible.
Absolutely. And I think the reason we were able to do what we've done, and it wasn't because of me. I mean, this is a team. These are veterans supporting one another. And I think at that time, back in 2010, we weren't just doing it with each other as veteran to veteran because we could relate and because we knew we needed each other to get through. But we also got these families that came to the table that, absolutely knocked us on our ass because there was that void and they felt like they were on their own island, right? And they felt like, just like that veteran would feel when they were in that situation, if they were isolated or by themselves or if they didn't have that tribe to fall into. And that's been a lot of what our, the principles of what we're doing now with a lot of the programming, particularly for service members that are getting out, is we are building that tribe, right? We're making it so that you can come in and navigate whatever it is you want to do. And you have that built-in support network, which I think is incredibly important. And I've been out a while, so, I'm like the old guy now, right? But we're trying to take our experiences in the last, 14 or so years to get ready for the next. And that includes helping build that next tribe and support that transition and help veterans so they don't fall through the cracks and going through what I went through, whatever it is in your life, but at least knowing that you have that network. And I think it's looked over and no one realizes it until you do it for a while. And then you realize this is important. This is why it's so special.
I think a really important part too is that you talk about it was a group of veterans who decided to do more. And there's definitely people that work with and for Mass Fallen Heroes that didn't serve, but sometimes it takes that trusted source. Sometimes it takes someone like yourself to say, hey, I was there, and here's what we're doing for you, to be able to draw people in.
Right.
Because a lot of times people are willing to help, but they're sitting there with their hands tied because it's like, well, how do I speak to this person? So the fact that it's coming from a community similar with first responder, law enforcement, military that is out there doing this stuff, and then it brings them into all these incredible people, veterans or not, that are there to support and help is really cool. So I think it means a lot that it's coming from you. Again, coming from a trusted source speaks volumes. Not saying it's impossible without it, but I think that's a big factor in your success and how many people you've helped and honored.
Yeah, it was important in the early days. We were very fortunate to just put the right people at the table to help guide us. We had Gold Star families from Beirut to up to a month before we really had a kickoff, where obviously they lost someone they loved in service to their country, but having them come in and kind of drive the bus a little bit on what was missing. And then their experiences, particularly I always bring up Christine Devlin, her son's name's on the Beirut Memorial right down the street. Her son was killed in 1983. I was 1, right? And Chris was the champion of everything Gold Star related, from the Gold Star Mothers of America to building a memorial to honor his son. And having that input and having that, I call it leadership, particularly with Chris, because she was a leader, but she carried her son and she carried Gold Star families to a level that no one else was doing at the time. So we were feeding off that. And if you think about the post 9/11 veteran and the things that we did when our service, most of us, so to speak, after the towers were hit, we're having conversations with someone who lost their son in the bombing of Beirut, right? It was just incredible the veterans that were there, I mean, it all kind of worked out, but it set the pace for what we needed to do. And then obviously we've evolved and tried to perfect it. Here we are, 14 years later.
That's amazing. And there's a big event coming up, which is the Patriot Week leading into the Gala dinner. I want to hear kind of a little bit about, before like the details, but more so kind of what it's all about, how long it's been going on, and what the driving force is behind it.
We launched Patriot Week in 2016 when we dedicated the memorial. And the real catalyst for creating Patriot Week was to educate the community, really to bring in the outsiders. We get stuck in the military veteran. Obviously the first responder piece for us was huge because a lot of us came from the fire and police background. You have a lot of one-sided mentality when you have veteran families, military families, but there's a disconnect with the civilian side. And one of the things that we wanted to do again, it comes down to honoring the fallen, right? If we put a memorial up and we put names up and just walk away, people aren't talking about it. People aren't understanding who that person was or who the family is that's impacted. And the goal with Patriot Week was to try to break that divide and bring the civilian side in to understand, because it's like a foreign language. They don't understand what happens in the military because there's only, I think our generation, less than 1% actually went in the military. The military families aren't what they were post World War II into Vietnam, and then obviously into our upbringing. And it was an amazing task because it's been hard. And we've done it through education. We've found a way to break that divide. Obviously, we were able to use our position in the seaport, which is brand, at the time, some of this was brand new, and bring the military and bring the veteran world into the civilian world. And that has helped us, with growing our network, growing the resources. Obviously the funding component, that's where a lot of people step up and say, I want to be involved and I want to support what you're doing. And it could be the simple things. It's not just the gala. I mean, it's like we put, 3,000 flags in the Seaport Common every 9/11, every Veterans Day, every Memorial Day. And that's obviously part of us honoring the ones we've lost, but it's engaging with the public. Well, and it's a beautiful, tribute.
That's what I want to kind of hop in and say, because, there's all sorts of stuff that goes on in the Seaport, and I can raise my hand to say I had walked past that memorial numerous times having no idea what it was. And you have people who are running like the Seaport Sweat, and there's all these people that are, hundreds of people gathering for this free fitness event, and people are doing a bunch of stuff down there. But as much as you can look from a civilian perspective and be like, what is a bunch of flags going to do? I'll tell you exactly what it's going to do. Is it's going to have people understand and realize what that memorial is there for, and bridge the gap. As much as it may seem simple from a veteran side, and as much as it may seem unnecessary from a civilian side, what that does is bridge the gap between what is going on down there and how people can get involved. As simple as putting flags in the ground, and it's a beautiful sight. It reminds me of when you go to Arlington and you get so humbled by the hundreds of thousands of white tombstones that are there, and you're like, wow, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened here, and maybe bring some more attention. Someone goes over there, starts to read some more names. People want to get involved. So it's not it sounds simple, but I think the impact is huge. I just wanted to hop in and say that about that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, because it really is. The creation of the week, which runs from Armed Forces Day, which a lot of people don't realize, to Memorial Day. One of those things that we can do as an organization to the civilian side is educate and understand the difference between Armed Forces Day, Memorial Day, and Veterans Day, right? Which is important, but gets lost in translation. And sometimes it can be, upsetting, depending on the person, right?
Right.
Some people look at the mattress sale and say, well, why are we doing a mattress sale on Memorial Day, right? But that's what we want. Like our brothers and sisters that have fought in every war for the freedom of this country, like, we get to have those things. And I'm not one of those guys who gets all upset about it, but what I want to do is make sure we don't get too stuck and forget. We get too focused on, it's the first weekend of summer, it's time to get the grill out. There's more to that. And I think anyone that I ever served with that gave their life wouldn't want us to be somber and upset, but live our lives to the fullest. And there's a balance that we're trying to draw. And Patriot Week was our way of doing it. So if we can put a series of events throughout in the Commonwealth and in the Seaport, obviously at Encore with the Gala, an education program out in schools talking about these things and telling real stories from veterans and Gold Star families, it helps us continue to grow, but it also heals. And it's important for us to continue to do that. And, Patriot Week, thank God, has been well received, particularly where we are in Boston and the Seaport. And we introduced our gala to the Patriot Week back in 2017. Our dinner used to traditionally be in December. And the reason our dinner was in December, because we planned the first one, was right between the holidays, and that's when we're bringing families together. We wanted to bring families together during that tough time between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Now, that dinner in December is just for the families. And that's like the best Christmas party. It's the family environment, Santa Claus, toys, food, the whole 9 yards, but it's just for families. And we've continued to kind of build around the programming with families, but also, Patriot Week is a huge part of our existence, and, it's a major catalyst when it comes to us raising dollars.
So what's going on this year for the gala dinner?
So we've been fortunate. This is our third year. We partnered with Encore Boston Harbor, and amazing venue, great event. We bring in we have an unbelievable cocktail hour. First of all, we have a Black Hawk helicopter. We land on the South Lawn. This year we're honored that Tulsi Gabbard will join us as our keynote speaker. Tulsi's a lieutenant colonel, currently in the reserves, former congresswoman, former presidential candidate, combat veteran, unbelievable human being, CrossFit fanatic. We watch her workouts and feel like a weak man. And, her story and her views as a veteran and someone who still serves, and obviously with her background in Congress and the lens she looks through from a geopolitical and, military standpoint, is amazing. One of the best people I've ever listened to and paid attention to over the last couple of years. So we're honored to have her, come and join us. And, we have a slew of people that are recognized and receive awards at the dinner for their work and the importance that they bring to the table for the greater good, and mainly supporting veterans and Gold Star families. And it helps us grow. So the gala becomes kind of the big deal, so to speak, because of the pomp and circumstance that are around it. And obviously the venue is top notch. But again, we're doing the things that most people wouldn't typically do when it comes to like bringing the military into your front yard. And that's something that is important to all the events that we do, including, the Seaport. And, we do the same stuff when we rededicate the memorial. It's, a lot of military, not just the bands and the honor guards, but it's a Black Hawk, it's an F-15, it's the howitzers. We kind of bring it all right and park it right on Northern Ave and, make some noise.
That's amazing. I actually didn't know that Tulsi was a CrossFit.
Yeah.
We're going to see if we can get a secret workout in.
Definitely. I bet you should take you up on that. Molly can probably pull some videos.
That's amazing. And it's just cool, too, because you think about someone in that standpoint, and there's a lot of people that just haven't been there, done that. So, again, when we talk about trusted source, when you have someone that, say, lieutenant colonel, former congresswoman, it's like there's all these things where it's like, oh, she understands it. And so bringing her in is really, really cool. How would someone get involved with the event? Let's say I own a company and I'm the biggest Tulsi Gabbard fan on the earth. What can someone do to get involved? And I guess we'll talk about kind of all tiers. If someone's listening to this, they're like, well, I want to help out. I'm just a single person. Or someone's like, I have $50 billion in my account and I own XYZ. Like how does someone get involved with it?
We have amazing partnerships, and we have an unbelievable host committee. I mean, you were in the meeting earlier. Where the folks that truly believe in the mission and the future are there to support. The corporate buy-in has been a huge part of, the blessing that we've had to continue to grow. And we're obviously welcoming anybody who wants to get involved from that standpoint, whether it's on the host committee or whether it's a financial commitment, if the company wants to get behind it. And all that information's on our website. You can go to massfallenheroes.org, look at the events, look at Patriot Week, all the different tiers of sponsorship. And that ranges from, small dollars to big dollars. But we're also going to be releasing ticketed. We're going to have a ticketed portion of the event too, so that folks that aren't committed to those big contributions can still attend. There'll be obviously a cap on how many tickets you can purchase, but there's also going to be a push for military veterans and first responders to have a discounted, ticket and access to Encore and to this event. It is obviously, our job is to raise money and continue to grow. The organization runs, on all money that we raise. We're privately funded, and this is the event of the year where we pull all those folks in and we recognize them, but we also fill the room and we have an amazing night to honor the fallen.
Because I run events for my company, it's always really cool to hear this and to put this kind of information out there, because I am, in those meetings and I get a chance to see how much goes into every single aspect of it. It's pretty easy for someone on the outside to kind of look at something as a whole to be like, that's pretty cool. They raised a lot of money, or, XYZ for this. And they're like, oh, this day was really, really cool. And it's like, planning for the gala dinner starts the day after the previous one happens. And there's just so many people that are putting in so much effort into it to make it as incredible as it is. So from me planning small events to what goes into this, it's just to see all that stuff go in is really, really cool. And again, we talk about it just being like, one, it can bring in the fundraising dollars, great. But what it does more than that, and what it does at a level, beyond anything I've seen, is honor the people and honor the ones that have gone before us.
Yeah, and again, that's where the team comes in. We have an amazing team internally that work for the organization, amazing staff. The host committee I mentioned, the chair is the sponsors that a lot of our, donors and sponsors have been around for a long time, which is very important to the work we do in those relationships, because it's not just the money, right? One thing we try to pride ourselves on is the folks that come in and support. We want to partner throughout the year, whether it's mentorship to veterans or whether it's coming in and getting involved in the programming. We want to do more than just get a check and put your logo on a screen at a dinner, right? It's way more important to have that engagement. And the team that we've luckily been able to build has been able to take this every year and grow. And obviously we all hit things we can improve on. We always constantly do that. But for us with Patriot Week, it's just as important looking at the event planning, but it's also, you got to take into consideration that the gala is really just the start of the week. There's all the other events that come after it. So, that's where the team comes in to carry it. Obviously, the relationship we have with Big Night now in helping us get from, May 18th through Memorial Day is very important. Keep us all on our toes and keep us organized. But, it's the outreach, it's the community support. And, again, when it comes down to bringing in Gold Star families, like we talked about today, there's 4 new families coming in that are getting their names put on the memorial. 4 heroes that died while in service last year. Those families are coming to these events for the first time. So they have, now coming in, but they also have all the other things that come with it. And that's coming into the organization and being part of our family.
Even you just saying that just gives me, it's hard to talk about, because you look at that and you're like, wow, that's really cool. It's really big what's happening. But when you look at it from that perspective, it's something that's honoring, but it's something that no Gold Star family member or no family member ever wants to be a part of. No one wants to have to go to these types of things. However, because it happened, and knowing that their son, daughter, dad, mom, brother, sister are continuing to be honored and will never be forgotten, their names will live forever on that memorial. And even though they're no longer on this earth, they're still going to be talked about and remembered for their sacrifice. One of those names on there was Chris Chambers, who a few months ago they were on an op in the Gulf of Aden. And one of his teammates had fell off the ladder approaching a ship and went into the water. And it wasn't his mistake that did that, but what he did without hesitation was what he was trained to do, which is no one is alone. And so he jumped in after his swim buddy, and unfortunately neither of their bodies were found. But it's like to have someone with that much honor and to not have people speak their names for the sacrifice made for the safety of our country, for our world, is way worse than thinking about, oh, it's got to be tough for someone to go to a memorial. And I think that's something that maybe our listeners can keep in mind, where, you know, if you show your support, I mean, imagine going to a memorial and there's 10 people there being like, hey, you know, this is great, we're here. Or imagine going to a memorial where there's thousands of people, at a funeral where people are spilling outside of the church. When there's that type of thing, to show those people your support, and that's something that can happen with no money purchase at all. So you go there and you show your support and support to what Mass Fallen Heroes is doing, I think is just so important to a family, and is humbling. It's hard to fathom, hard to talk about, but it's just really cool, and I'm just so grateful to even be a small part of what's going on with Mass Fallen Heroes.
One of the things that I think is incredible, and I kind of take pride in it, just from an organizational standpoint, is obviously the input from the families that work so close with us and are part of that family. But we actually have families that work for the organization. You know, so we have it's in our front living room. You know, and that's not important because they work here, but it's important because the other families that feel like they're alone find comfort in connecting.
A trusted source, right?
Yeah, and I had a conversation yesterday with a sister of a Marine who died this year, and she really doesn't have anybody. You know, her family is kind of on their own island, you know, and it's not just about putting her brother's name on the memorial. It's about having a conversation with another Gold Star sister and connecting, and then coming in and maybe they decide to come to events, maybe they don't. But the one thing I always say to families is we're going to continue to have these events and build that community. And something we've witnessed in real time over the last 14 years is we've watched kids grow. We've watched families evolve. We've watched people get married. We've watched people go into careers and find success in their life while living a better life for their loved one. And I think that's like the most overlooked portion of what we do in the Gold Star family piece of Mass Fallen Heroes. And that's why it's so significant for us to continue. You know, we talk about the names, and you just said something that when you're talking about Chris Chambers is, you know, we're going to do so much more at that memorial. You know, we have a building we're building in the next 2 years, you know, depending on how things work with development, but 2,000 square foot building of space that the organization will have right there at the foot of the memorial. And one of the key objectives in that memorial is to build an interactive component, because we want folks to learn about those names. You can't get the backstory when you're I mean, people come down. It's amazing to watch people that walk on it and say, wow, what is this? And then they realize, and you can even see emotion sometimes with folks. But now they'll have the ability to go look up Chris Chambers and say, you know, who was he? What did he do? And all that information will be shared. And, you know, we have a podcast going where families are telling stories. You know, those will be in a library, you know, so you'll know firsthand when you're there who that person was. You know, one of our founders, Eric Iman, was killed in 2018. You know, we named the square, Iman Square, after him. He has a piece of the memorial. You know, he's different because he started this organization. You know, his picture's there. You know, it's a little bit of a story for him. But we want to do that for all of the men and women that we lost. And unfortunately, we can't do it, you know, in glass or in steel. So we're going to utilize everything else we can with technology and, you know, let families tell those stories so that they carry on forever, you know, and that's important to what we do. But again, it also becomes another, you know, it's a proudful moment for a family to actually tell their story. And it's not just about military. You know, sometimes we get super focused on, that photo of the service member in front of the flag. Mom and dad might look at a 8-year-old Little League player, their favorite photo that's hanging up in the house or on the mantle. And we also want to recognize that, because there's so much more to these men and women than just whatever service they were in or whatever they did when they died. And those are the things we want to convey. And I think families like that, because they're not just stuck in the military. Like they were so much more. We all were. Everyone we served with, they all came from a different background, a different story. And, sometimes that story needs to be told of what they did outside of the military.
And I think on top of that is, for some of the service members, people are remembered for who they were beforehand, but I think it gives purpose to service members that are still here to create a legacy to who they are after their service, and the people that are still here. And that's something for me. I was lost. I was a guy who was I was a sad soul who felt sorry for myself, and I was just probably not a great person to be around. But because I was able to still be here and honor the sacrifice that these people made of my closest friends, my teammates, people I knew, people I didn't know, it's like it gave me purpose to, live for, now I've got to live big enough for 2 people. Now I've got to live big enough for 3 people. And I don't want that to be like a pressure situation where, oh man, I'm not doing enough here. But man, you look at that memorial and you start reading some of those names and you're like, maybe there is something I can do. Maybe there is a little bit more than I can give back. And you're right, it's not just veterans. It happens, and it's a shared sentiment for anyone who's lost anyone. And this is just that small piece of it that we're like, hey, this is where our focus point is going to be. And I think you guys are doing an amazing job on that to help people like myself, even though it may not seem like it's like a big impact. The class I ran on Tuesday is because we've been working together. And so at Big Night CrossFit at my gym in Charlestown on Tuesdays at 7 p.m., and I took a poll, I run a free veterans class. And it's not just to be like, Big Night, we're running a free veterans class. We want people to come in and feel a sense of community. And there was a woman in there on Tuesday, her name's Brandy, and she didn't give me permission to speak about this, but I'm going to anyways. She used to be a member of a gym, and that gym closed, and it was one class, and it was a small group of people. And she was like, I feel like I found, it's like an easy way not to be like, hey, were you a veteran? Did you, how do we cross parallels to get along with people? It's like, hey, we're all here to work out. It doesn't matter what your fitness level is. And after that, that community feeling. And I'm a selfish person. I'll be the first one to tell you that. And I also love doing it because, damn, it feels good. It feels good when someone says thank you, when someone says this has helped. And you do it for selfish reasons, you do it for unselfish reasons, you're doing it. And I wouldn't have done that without Mass Fallen Heroes and without the support from you guys, and want to continue to build and grow that.
I think it goes to say the importance of wherever it is, whether it's the class that Big Night's hosting, veterans need one another. And I've seen this over the last couple of years because I finally got my shit together when it comes to getting back in shape and working out. But even this weekend, we got veterans, Gold Star families, and civilians putting 35, 40-pound rucks on our back and going out and doing 26.2 miles. Why? I'm 42. I was doing this stuff in my 20s. I'm a busted up old paratrooper. Why am I doing this now? But it's because we can feed off each other for a greater purpose and greater good, and that is to honor fallen, military and first responders. I've seen it in the work, obviously, you do, day in and day out. We're seeing it in groups getting together to go hiking, and these are some of the things I'm personally feeding off of now. Yeah. Because even sometimes it's just nice to talk to another vet you don't know. And then what I've seen, and again, this is my journey, it's growth. We get stuck in the PTS side of the house, and it's like, well, what about the PTG, the PSG side, post, what is a PTG, post traumatic stress growth, right? Not the D, right? And those are the outlets that I think that are important for us to feed off of, particularly when it comes to, putting our body through hell. for a greater cause.
I tell you.
And then living, you feel good about it. Obviously, what it does for your brain, what it does for your body. And you build this network, and next thing you know, you're doing crazy things that your body wouldn't allow you to do when you started.
It is amazing what shared suffering can do.
It's amazing.
For a group of people.
Trust me, I've been, again, in my personal life, the vets that are around me and the leaders that I have in my life who have been able to check me on the worst days of my life, but also bring me up, is important. And I think if we can replicate that in whatever it is with one another, that's going to help us, not only be better people, but it's also going to help us deal with some of the negative shit that we carry.
Absolutely. I love moments of silence of thought. It's something that I've gotten better at with other people. And, I think one of the things that I've been working on outside of the Mass Fallen Heroes is trying, especially during doing a podcast, is not thinking what I'm going to say next. Because there's times when something comes up and I'm like, oh, I'm going to think about this. And then it's like when I'm reading a book and I'm thinking about something else. And then I'm 2 chapters later, I'm like, I don't remember I have to reread. And I'm like, there's no way that I read that. This is the first time that I'm reading it. But kind of listening into what people are saying. And I've just been just grateful for the opportunity to, one, sit down and chat with you on a public forum, but as well as to have this, to be able to, talk about ways other people can get involved. And I think there is a stigma as well as, oh, I wasn't a veteran, I can't really help out with that.
Right.
We need other veterans to help out. And what you're doing is you're showing that that's not the case.
And there's so much more we can do, and that's one of the tasks we have over this next year. The organization's grown to a point where, the next evolution kicks in. Major rebranding campaign underway right now. Mass Fallen Heroes is the core of the mission, and that's what we've done for the last 14 years. That doesn't change. But some of the other programming that we're building or we've had for years is going to elevate, and that's through Innovets. Innovets was a program we launched back in 2017. That now kind of becomes the upper canopy, so to speak, of everything we're doing. And we're really focusing on, how we can continue to grow the community, build that tribe, but at the same time leverage the civilian side of the house and bring them in to help us grow and help veterans grow, whether that's in workforce development, whether that's in tech and training, mentorship with business. The focuses we have within Innovets, STRAC, and Codex is a real way for us to truly intersect the civilian side into the military veteran side. And if we don't have that, we fail in 2 ways. One, we can't educate and continue to educate about service, sacrifice, and the ones that we've lost, because that's part of it. Because those Gold Star families come with us. They're open. Any program we have, you see a lot of things just for vets. No, Gold Star families, you come too. You're part of us. We live for you. And then bringing in the civilian side is important because it helps all of us go forward. And there's so many different ways we're going to be able to do that, through the transition and rebranding as Innovets, continue the traditional mission that we started 14 years ago at Mass Fallen Heroes, and then elevate into some of the new initiatives that we're going to launch this summer.
It's awesome to see that and get out there that people have that support and where it's going, and that it's not going to stop. It's not a one-time thing. And that's what I like that you said too, is you're like, we're not trying to just hey, thanks for the money, here's your logo, and we're going to go on from there. It's like, how do you really get someone involved?
That's the biggest thing that we want to do and have a key different, we want to be different, right? We don't want to just raise money to raise money. We want to obviously deploy it in the right areas, and we want to put it to the services and programs that we know we can excel at. But at the same time, the money's useless if we don't have the support. So a company can write the smallest check or the biggest check, but if their CEO is coming in, their CEO, whoever in the company, it doesn't have to be, it could be the mailroom guy. that support is going to help people get to where they need to be to have successful lives. And that's the one thing we're trying to change. We're trying to bring people into certain industries that they traditionally wouldn't have a pathway to, whether it's through entrepreneurship or whether it's through tech. I mean, we're going to slow roll this. We'll get into other sides of it as time goes on. But, this year is going to be telling. And, I say it all the time, like we don't do it by ourselves. That tribe, that community, the corporate world, the veteran world, the military, the Gold Star families, like we're all in it together. And if we don't have buy-in from all the different pieces of the puzzle that we put on the table, then we're going to fail.
During this, I started thinking about it because I told you I was going to reach out to Robbie for the, just to get him involved. And your response was so incredible. And I do want to give a shout out to Robbie because, of course, I messaged him, and anyone who knows him knows exactly what his response was. It wasn't, what's the details? What do we do? It just says, whatever you need.
Right.
And here's someone. So Fitzy, Robbie owns Rosa Lions in South Boston. He came over here from Ireland, was a bar back, then bartender at the Playwright, and then wanted to start his own place. And if you have an opportunity, and if you live in South Boston, I want you to go into Rosa Lions. And if you think, hey, I'm not a military veteran, I can't do much, I want you to look on the walls in there. I want you to look and see how many people are honored enough that have served, police, military, firefighter, any first responder, and they come in there and they put their patch on there because of how much he honors and what he's willing to do to make sure that they know how much he appreciates their sacrifice, both people who have passed, people who are still here. You look on the walls and there's generals and admirals and all these people who have sent Robbie this unbelievable memorabilia, and there's flags all on the wall of everything that people say, hey, I want to be represented here. And it's not a veteran. It's someone who just wants to show appreciation, and he wants to get involved with that. So I have to give a shout out to Robbie, a very, very close friend of mine, and just someone who exemplifies what you can do from a civilian perspective to get involved, even if it's not a money perspective, which he also does, but just to honor and say, hey, I show your support and I appreciate what I get to do because of what, as a whole, the military, police, and fire provide for this country.
It's amazing to see what they've done over the years. I mean, we obviously know each other. We know we're right down the street, right? And the impact. The guy shows up. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard the guy say no in anything I've seen, whether it's through public safety or whether it's military related. And the community point of that is so important because we've kind of lost that. Things have changed, times have changed, the neighborhood's changed, but when you see that staple in the community, particularly Southie, right? It's amazing to watch, and I never miss it because I always see these groups. Whether they're small groups. I know there's a very impactful organization right now that's doing care packages. And you see it on the feeds and you see it everywhere, and they're always there. They're always out front, getting behind it, whether it's the parade, whatever it may be. So, those are the things that people count on. And we live in a society today where most people say no before they say yes. So I support that and appreciate everything that Rosa Lions does.
You said community in there, and it made me probably one of the more proud moments I've had with Robbie is, we have this global pandemic where everything is closed, and it's like these businesses are struggling. And, I got a chance to stop by Rosa Lions and see Robbie, and his biggest stress was not him. His biggest stress was making sure that his employees were taken care of. And what was the coolest thing is that people wanted to go dine out, get takeout food and get growlers and do all that stuff from Rosa Lions because of how much of a staple he is in the community. I never saw that much at all these other restaurants that have great food that are awesome. I'm not saying anything negative about them, but when you see that community aspect, and it's like, people in strong communities can change the world. And I think you're doing that with Mass Fallen Heroes. I know I'm on this Robbie gas up train right now, but it is really cool. And it's you get what you give, and I think Robbie, deserves a shout out every now and again.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll make sure we get him a new plaque for this year, for sure. Anything else that we have moving forward? Anything that you want to talk about that people, we have massfallenheroes.org.
website that you can go to for resources to figure out and to find out everything that's going on there. You can always go to the Big Night Fitness Instagram or on the website to get access to the veteran class. Literally, all you got to do is sign up, and you don't have to like show your military ID or that stuff. If you want to identify as a veteran and come hang out with us, we'll figure it out. But anything else that we want to talk about? Anything that?
I mean, we just love the engagement, and we love to meet new folks. Obviously, first and foremost, if there's a veteran, or a Gold Star family that's listening and wants to engage, get in touch with us. There's many ways to do that. Obviously through our website, but you can even do it through social. We have a great team that monitors everything and responds pretty quickly. If you want to email, you can email info@massfallenheroes.org. And I'd tell the veterans and the families to just keep an eye out on what we're doing and who we are as we go through this growth, and as we rebrand and Innovets, kind of comes from nothing to something, because there's going to be tremendous opportunity there for active duty military members getting out of the military, veterans of all, ages and backgrounds, and more importantly, anyone who's going down the entrepreneur, route and wants to start and grow a business. We've literally built an incubator for our own in the Seaport, and we want to help veterans, find success in their own business journeys. We have a new program that we're going to launch in the fall called Codex, and that's going to create opportunities and pipelines for veterans, Gold Star families, and active duty service members to get into cyber. Don't want to get in the rabbit hole now, but the next war we fight isn't going to be with bullets. We're already fighting the war technically when it comes to cyber. And the military veteran has the mindset to use their skill set and what they did. It doesn't matter what they did in the military. They can get into these jobs and they can help protect America. There's a huge gap in jobs right now in that sector. Bounces between 750,000 to 1 million. Globally it's even probably higher, but the FBI director was on yesterday, and China's got us 50-1 when it comes to what they have working against us. So we've focused a lot on that just from a national defense standpoint. But we also know if we build the opportunity and the training, and we have that civilian side and we have the corporate side, because the corporate side needs it just as much as we need it from a national defense side, we can put veterans, Gold Star families, the service members getting out into that pipeline, train them up, dust them off, utilize that clearance that they probably have, and put them in a pretty good paying job, along with mentorship along the way, and obviously a career path, right? So that's a big push for us next year with cyber. The next phase of that will be cloud, and then the next phase will be software development. So there's a lot of moving pieces with the growth of the organization, but now this is where we kind of turn the afterburners on. We've taken the last 14 years of the work we've done, and we've done, you name it, we've probably done it when it comes to the veteran side of the house. But really focus on things that matter and then create opportunity. And again, it's a perfect marriage for us with all the communities that we have when it comes to veterans, Gold Star families, and now we're introducing a pathway out of the military. But we need that buy-in, and we're getting it, from the corporate side and the civilian side, because they're already there, right? That's where we change the narrative a little bit, where people come in with checks, that's great, but now we need you for the next year because we have X amount of service members or veterans that need support in getting into a successful journey post-military service. So a lot going on.
Yeah.
And we've had a tough year. The team that works for the organization has been upside down, working overtime, building and running the current day-to-day Patriot Week, and then at the same time over here building new programming, new brand, and intersecting all the relationships and the resources that we have. I talk about the Iman Center. You were in there. You talked about the gym earlier with Sorinex. We've created the Iman Center for engagement. We want vets, Gold Star families coming in, if they're participating in the programming, and they can literally come in, hang their hat, and everything's there. from parking to a workout to a shower to a call room to a coffee to a beer, whatever. I mean,
it's a really nice shower.
It is.
I thought that was like your private bathroom when I first went in there because I saw your stuff hanging up in there. I'm like, am I taking a dump in Dan's private bathroom right now?
No private bathroom.
I sprayed the stuff down.
But that's important. Like that's us building the tribe. Like we want people to come in and feel comfortable, and even if it's something where a veteran just needs to show up, you know. They don't need to come in and be a part of anything. If they're just like going through something, we can guide and direct. We might not have all the answers. We might not be able to do it right in front of you, but we'll damn sure find a way out of what's going on. And sometimes that's just what matters, you know, just showing up, maybe getting a workout with you or jumping, you know, into something and just tag along in a meeting and make an introduction, and, you know, it could change lives. And that's our goal. But we need to do this and transition into this new organization without forgetting our past and without diminishing where we started as Mass Fallen Heroes. That'll always be the core of what we do, but we'll just kind of bolt on some cool shit around it and continue to grow and succeed.
It's awesome, brother. And I will say kudos to that sentiment, because today I had time to probably drive home and shower before coming into the office, but it's such a welcoming environment where I was an hour early, and I'm like, there was not a hesitation in my head.
You could have jumped in the shower.
I'm going to go. No, I wanted everyone to know that I worked out today. Yeah. So, you know, good workout doesn't count unless everyone knows you did it.
Yeah.
But
Trust me, we know you work out. You're always telling us.
You know, just there's a little lounge area. They had the TV on and that stuff. I grabbed a coffee. It is awesome. So make sure you reach out to Dan, to Mass Fallen Heroes. It can be a DM on Instagram. It can be anything. If there's something that you want to get going and you want to get involved, do it, because like we talked about and like what Dan's doing, you get what you give. So go and give well, and you will receive it. And I'm super grateful for you, and I know a lot of other people are for, I mean, obviously not just you, but for Mass Fallen Heroes and everything that you're doing. And if there's anything else that I can ever do, you be sure to reach out and I'll be there. Yeah,
brother, I appreciate it. And I'm grateful to you and obviously what you're doing to help elevate us and support us. Obviously, Big Night Fitness, this is instrumental and part of the partnership. So, you know, we're in this together, man, and we'll just we'll keep trudging forward, and we'll make some cool things happen.
That's it, brother. Thanks for giving us and me particularly purpose in this, and having a purposeful living. You know, that's what you had said. It's like giving people that purpose.
Hell yeah. Thanks, brother.
All right, guys. If you don't know where to find us, you can go to bignightfitness.com. It's pretty much just all the same stuff on social media. If you can't find us, but you're somehow listening to this, I don't know how you got here, but we appreciate you listening in. And stay tuned for next week's episode. And again, if you want to get involved, the gala dinner is May 18th.
May 18th, yeah. Patriot Week kicks off on the 18th.
Kicks off on the 18th. A bunch of really cool stuff going on. Get involved. If anything, the rededication to the memorial. If you just want to show up and see something awesome, be a part of something awesome, show up at that. And we'll see you guys next time.